I'm so happy to be here to spend a little bit of time with you all today. So about 2 years ago, I was unconscious on an operating table. My chest open, my heart torn apart from the aortic dissection, as Dr. Fukuhara shared about a little bit. My brain already damaged from a massive stroke. My family was being told to prepare for the worst. And the odds were against me, but I was very fortunate that I had people who would not let those odds define my future. So I want to say now, what I was unable to say at the time is thank you. Thank you for staying late. Thank you for all of those years of education. Thank you for all of those student loan payments, all of those nights that you stayed at the library to study when your friends were out having a good time, all of those times of discipline towards your academics, all of those rounds that you did while learning how to become a doctor. Thank you for all of that. And I know that a lot of times you guys are, and I didn't hear any details, but I know that you guys are talking about data and so forth, and you're used to reading scans and data and charts. Well, I ended up becoming all of those things. I was a lot of things, though, before I was all of those things. Before I became a chart, I was a son to my mother, who I've always had a wonderful relationship with. Her and I went through a lot together. Just one second. I want to make sure I don't go over time. Her and I went through a lot together. I had a lot of challenges in my childhood, but she taught me a really strong faith and a strong work ethic, and I was very fortunate. I'm very fortunate to have an amazing mother who never would give up on me no matter what. And also a brother. I was also a brother. My brother and sister, you can see my sister Robin there and my brother Jerry. They're two of the most important people in my life, and we had a lot of fun together. We always did. And also my wife Julie, who's in the back over there, she is by far the best thing to ever happen to me. And being her husband is the ultimate privilege in my life. And so I'm very fortunate. But I was all of those things before I became a chart. That's who Josh was. And I had several other roles as well. For example, my favorite role by far is daddy. To my son Charlie, Danny, and Benji, they're definitely the light of my life. They're the wind and the sail of my life. And being their dad has been one of the biggest honors of a lifetime, and I'm very thankful for that. Also, SEL director was the most recent position that I held, as Dr. Fukuhara was saying, and I worked for one of the largest education technology companies in the country, and I was their SEL director, and it's because I had a knack for connecting with educators. So I worked with educators from all different sizes of schools, from little small charter schools in the middle of Alaska to Miami-Dade County and Los Angeles Unified School District. Those are districts that I worked directly with, working with their team to help their staff connect with their students and build an SEL culture, because I'm very passionate about young people, and I feel like somebody has to help them, and I felt like compelled to help them, so that's what my role was. And I spent most of 2022, before all this happened, pitching the idea to executives within my company to create a position for me. And so that's exactly what happened, is they created that role for me, the role that I was performing when all of this stuff happened. Also, community member. I was very active in the community, a lot of volunteering with the kids' school, coaching sports, very active in my church. Me and my friends have a men's group of 160 guys that meet every Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. at the church. We call it the Men's Prayer Breakfast. So that was a huge part of who I was, too, being very active in my community. All of those things were part of who I was before all of this happened. What I'm going to talk to you guys about next are the 3 T's: the trial, the team, and the triumph. Those are the things that I'm going to talk to you guys about today. And one thing to think about when it comes to our trial is sometimes we don't really know when our trial is going to begin. Just a second. Oh, sorry. Just hit the wrong button. We don't always know when our trial is going to begin. And I think that if you look at your life and you look at your journey to get where you are, to be the best in your field. No doubt throughout the course of your life, you came across trials. Your trials are different than mine, and they're different than the person sitting next to you, but no doubt you had trials, and there was a team, or you're part of a team. So, and then ultimately, we're all fighting for that triumph to become who we really want to be. So, what I'm going to show you next is not the actual presentation that I was delivering when it happened, but I did a lot of presentations, and a lot of times school districts would ask me to make recordings for them and send them the recordings. So I did that, and so what I did is I took a piece of one of my recordings, and I just kind of give you an idea of what the experience was like for me in that moment. So just a little bit of a background. So I was working, like I said, at the time I was working as a national SEL director, and we were doing a presentation to this large healthcare provider, and they have facilities all across the country, and they were looking to use SEL to help their students who are clinically depressed and have medically diagnosed depression and so forth. So they were really looking to do that. So that was the point of the call that I was on when all of this stuff happened, and that was what the call was about. It was really one of the first opportunities for me in this new role to really show up and show my company and show these people that I could really do what I felt called to do and what I was trying to help them with. So I just give you guys a sec here to listen to this. Just a couple of ideas for some of our school leaders out there as we look at the landscape of education and the challenges with staffing, and those things are so real to all of us. What can we do really to help that situation?
Ambulance to fire. What is the address? It's Callie Heath at 7290 Salem Road in Salem Township. Oh my gosh, please help me.
Pretty rough way to start a Zoom call. So just a little bit of context, what was going on. That was a normal day. I dropped my kids off at school, and I went home, went upstairs to my office, and went to work, just like I always do. My wife was at work, and she had no idea anything was going on at the house. Frankly, she got an alert. I don't know if anybody in here uses Life 360, but it alerts us when someone's completed a ride, and let her know that I completed a 30-minute ride. And she was like, she didn't have any idea where I was at or why I was out. I completed a ride. Well, she zoomed in, and she saw that I was at St. Mary's Hospital in Livonia. One of the parts of this whole thing, and I'm just trying to provide some context, because for me it's important for me to know and to always remember what could have been. Not what happened necessarily, but what could have been. And the reality is my kids, I dropped them off at school. My father-in-law was going to pick them up. And so when they came home from school, whatever happened in my office, they were going to walk in on it. So they were going to walk in on me collapsed and unconscious. So that was a pretty tough reality to think about what could have happened. It was definitely a close call.
What?
Yeah.
What are your nearest cross streets? Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
My chest hurts really bad, and I am really lightheaded, and I can't even think straight.
Okay, are you there by yourself?
Yes, I am, but I am.
I'm sorry?
I am here by myself.
Okay, how old are you?
4. I am here by myself.
Okay. Sorry, is your breathing normal for you?
Absolutely. I apologize.
I don't know.
Okay, everyone is on their way. Okay, this is not slowing them down. Are you clammy or having cold sweats?
What's that?
Are you clammy or having cold sweats?
Yes.
Have you ever had a heart attack or angina?
No.
Did you take any drugs or medications in the past 12 hours?
No.
I'm sending the paramedics to help you now. Stay on the line. I'll tell you exactly what to do next.
So one thing I will say is when I was walking up the stairs that day, there was no warning that this is going to be just, and no, there was no voice in my head, or there was no sign that said in 5 minutes you're going to be fighting for your life. There was no sign alerting me that my trial was about to begin. I had no idea that was the case. So what happened? Dr. Fukuhara did a much better job of explaining the details of what happened. Frankly, some of the stuff he was saying there, I didn't even know what a lot of the words meant. So obviously, I have a lot of respect for him and a lot of respect for all of you and for the profession that you all have. But just a little bit more about the call. So I have no memory of the call at all. I was talking to a friend, and he drilled it in, and he's like, what was the last thought you remember? And the only thought that I can remember thinking, and some of this thought is from listening to the call and so forth, and talking to the EMTs and different people like that, is this can't be happening right now. This is too important of a presentation. I have too many people, I've worked too hard on this. This can't be happening right now. That was the only thing that I remember thinking before all of this happened. And as Dr. Fukuhara said, I was doing this presentation, and according to the people on the call, the people that I talked to afterwards, they said that I came on, I started the presentation, I turned my camera off, and then I came back a couple minutes later, and I started presenting again, and then I came on and I turned it off, and then I came back on, and I said, I have to go, I have to call 911. And so that was according to them, that's what happened. And I have the 911 recording because I don't remember anything about it other than that last thought that I had. I have no memory of the call. I don't remember telling them anything. You can hear that I'm obviously in rough shape, right? And so, I mean, that's my boy's dad on the phone. You know what I'm saying? That's my boy's dad on the phone, right? So there's a lot to go the humanness of it, you know. So yeah, it was pretty intense. So the next thing is, you know, what was the diagnosis? The diagnosis. Dr. Fukuhara explained the diagnosis, and so I was very fortunate to have so I talked to the EMTs, the head EMT. I actually met the guy a couple of times. He's a really awesome guy. And they came into my house, and I was covered in sweat, and I was face down on my office, unresponsive. And he told me that they examined me for about 5 or 10 minutes, and they determined that I was what he calls a stow and go, meaning that they just want to get me in the ambulance and get me to the hospital. So they took me to St. Mary's in Livonia, and that's where they did all these tests and these scans to try to figure out what was going on, and they identified that I was having the dissection. So anyway, they were able to get me on the survival flight, and my whole life I've wanted to ride in a helicopter. Unfortunately for me, I'm not able to remember any of the ride. I was told about it after the fact, but it would have been really cool to ride in a helicopter. And it's interesting though, because looking back at it now, and even since then, I see the survival flight helicopter because I live close to Ann Arbor, and they fly over my house regularly. And it never really occurred to me what was going on those choppers as they go flying by. Well, anyway, so the numbers on the screen, I can't speak to the exact statistical data on this. I'm just sharing what my wife was told, and she describes this room that they walked her down this hallway, and they took her in a room, and she couldn't really describe the room, and her brother, who was with her, said, this is the kind of room people bring you when they're going to give you really bad news. So they took her in this room, and they told her that the type of dissection that I have, approximately 1% of the people who have the type of dissection that I have make it to surgery. And a large percentage of those don't make it through surgery. So that's what she was told in the moment. So that's the information that I have. She was told, you know, Mrs. Spears, we have to prepare you. She was told this at St. Mary's as well as at Michigan. We don't really know if your husband's going to survive. I just want to prepare you that we don't expect survival on this because he's a really sick man, is what they said. So that was a pretty rough thing, and that's where I feel like she really took a lot of the brunt of this versus me, because I was just taking a nap. You know, I don't remember any of it. You know, but she had to deal with all of it. She had to sit there and hear them say those words, and I just can't imagine what that would have been like for her. So that's the survival flight, and then as far as the afterwards, as I mentioned, I was also having a massive stroke. So, and I met a lot of different people last night at the banquet who do dissections and so forth. In my situation, mine was complicated with the stroke, and that's really what I'm still struggling with today are the symptoms of the stroke. And frankly, I don't remember. I was at U of M for 3 weeks, and I don't remember anything from my time at U of M. It all comes to me like in little blimps. Like just I think of this person or that. And frankly, most of the time I was at U of M, I was having a whole different reality going on in my mind. I was having like this vision / hallucination of what was happening. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But my mom did ask them, is he ever going to be able to remember us again? And they said, we don't know. We just don't know if he's ever going to. And they were giving us the best information they had, because they didn't know, So they're like, we don't know. And they said, walking isn't something that's very likely. And I was on a Hoyer lift. That's how they moved me around. So that was a pretty rough situation to find myself in. And frankly, as I've talked to the people at U of M, and I've talked to a whole bunch of different people, I've done a whole internal investigation of this whole thing. I went and I talked to the EMTs. I went to back to U of M, of course. I went to survival flight and spent a whole afternoon with. They found the same flight nurses that were on my flight, and I got a chance to spend a bunch of time talking to them and hearing their perspective. But I don't remember any of it, and that's where it's really interesting how I feel like I got let off the hook a little bit, because I'm glad I don't remember that, because I would really have a hard time being all jacked up like that. Would have been really tough, but fortunately for me, I don't remember it. I was during the whole time I was at the hospital, at U of M, it was I had a lot of different experiences while I was there, this is the room that I was in, and my brother snuck a picture, and my family didn't take a lot of pictures of me because they know that I'm not really a big fan of having my picture taken, especially in this condition. The last thing I would want to be is like a circus freak show. You know what I'm saying? And so not that I was, but that's how my mindset was. I don't want that. So he snuck a picture, and then these 2 pictures were taken. This just to give you an idea of what my situation looked like. But the reality, you can see some pictures there of what I looked like. But in the reality, in my mind, the vision that I was having, I was in a red circus tent with my brother, and he was sitting across from me in a booth, just like you would see at an old rundown bowling alley. And that was then. And during that time, I feel like that's when God really used that time to prepare me for what I had ahead of me, because I was hearing a lot of things, and I was getting a lot of training. And my brother, I love him to death. He's one of my favorite people, but he's a very forceful person, and he was being very aggressive with me in this vision. So that I told him some of the things that he was saying, and I asked him to make a recording of some of those things, and I told him the tone and everything so that I could share the story from the inside a little bit. So this is a little bit of an example.
Hey, can you hear me? Listen to me. You're in a bad spot, man. You're in a bad spot right now. I'm not going to lie. And this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done, but you can do it. You can do it. I know you can. I've seen you do it. You've been through other things. You can get through this. You can't give up. You need to focus.
Josh,
listen to me. Focus. Listen. You need to listen to me. All right? This is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. You're going to have to dig out of this, but you can do it. Each day, you're just going to have to get a little better. You're just going to have to focus on these wins, man, these small things, all right? You've got this. But you've got to keep fighting. You got to push through. You got to stay focused, all right? Think about your kids. Think about all of us. We all count on you way too much, man. All right? Your boys are going to grow up. You need to be there. And it's a choice. And you have to make that choice every single day, every single moment, and every single day. So what's your choice right now? What's your answer? Yes or no? Stop or go? Those are the options. You're in or you're out, and I know you're in. Stay in it. Stay focused. Dig deep.
Now, I know that's what was going on in my mind, and I know that there's a lot of different things, and I can't really connect. Like talking to my family, I can't really connect like what was really happening at any point with what I was feeling or what I was in my mind, what was happening. The only time of all of that I can kind of link when what was really going on and the vision that I was having is my brother was screaming in my face and screaming in my face. And finally, I just was like, okay. Well, what was happening is what happened at one point, I was in therapy and my blood pressure dropped because I had MRSA, and so my blood pressure dropped. So then they brought a whole bunch of people in, and they took me into a different room, and I was bottoming out. My blood pressure was bottoming out, and I think I was dying. You know what I mean? I don't know exactly, but that's what I was told after the fact, is that I was dying. And my brother was one of those guys. In this scenario, my wife was kind of frustrated. My mom, my sister, all these different people were frustrated because they would tell me, Josh, do this, Josh, do that, and I would just ignore them. Then my brother would do it, and all of a sudden I would listen. So when I was in there not responding to anybody and unresponsive, they sent him in the room, and he was screaming in my face, Josh, you gotta wake up. You can't go out like this. And of course, I don't remember it. I just remember him screaming in my face, and it was just finally I just said, And then evidently I said, and he heard me say that, and I grabbed whoever they were trying to get me to squeeze their finger, and then I squeezed my finger. But that is the only thing that I can remember being, like, that's probably when he was screaming in my face. This is in my mind. You know, I don't know how the human brain works, and I'm not a brain surgeon. That's why you guys can handle all that stuff. I've never been that smart of a guy. But anyway, that's what happened to me, and I feel like a lot of people can say a lot of things, as a vision, hallucinations, and I did do some research, and I know that people who have massive brain injuries and massive strokes have hallucinations. I like to think of it as a vision because I feel like it served a very, very valuable purpose in my recovery. It wasn't just like some people have an experience and they see a light and they start swimming towards the light, or they walking towards the light. For me, it wasn't. It was this dark, dingy circus tent and getting told off constantly. I'm just constantly, it was like, dude, give me a break, man. Like in my mind, that's what I was thinking. It was just like coming at me so hard. Well, that was, it ended up serving a purpose. And as we think about our team, the thing is, when it comes to our team, I've shared just a little bit about my team, and I could really talk a lot more about my team. And my wife was by my side the whole way, coordinating everything and making sure that everything was going smooth, make sure I wasn't getting too many visitors, and there by my side, holding my hands. My kids were part of my team. They came in and helped me. But the medical professionals, obviously, they had their team too. But what they did that was so amazing is they brought my family in to their team. So it wasn't like, you guys go do this with Josh, and we're going to fix this stuff. It was all everybody working as a unit to treat me and help me get through what I was going through. And making them feel and understand what was going on was really important. And that really made them, they specifically told me they never felt like they were in the way. They never felt like they were bothering anybody. They never felt like they felt like they had a bunch of people helping them. And it was like this project. Josh was the project. And everybody was rowing in the same direction. And talking to my sister about it, she's like, it could have been a lot different. It could have been siloed. You're working on this, and we're working on that, and it wasn't. And in my case, and I know that the thousands of other people who get the amazing treatment at the facilities that you guys all work at, I know that that's an important piece of the whole team aspect. So the next thing I want to talk about is we're kind of linking in the purpose of all of that brainwashing, or that pounding that I had was the recovery process. Up there on the top, you can see a picture of the, you see the door and the window. The one on the left, that's the goal board, and the one on the right is the PR board, and you can see a bigger picture of the PR board. So I'm obviously you can tell by looking at me that I'm not a huge, I ride the Peloton, but I'm not like an expert, because otherwise I wouldn't have this beautiful physique, right? Anyway, it was a real big thing for me, and everyone knew it. My family knew it because I was always talking about my PRs. I did this on my 45-minute ride, the 30-minute ride. It's a really important part of what I was trying to do with my life. I was trying to get myself in shape, and I was making a lot of progress. And so PRs were really important to me. And so that was something that my family used to really help. So the goals, though, had to start off really small goals. And I'll just give you an example. Stick tongue out. That was on my goal board. It's actually on my PR board still right now in my bedroom at my house. Imagine being in a situation where you sticking your tongue out is cause for everybody in the room to clap. And that's the kind of spot I was in. The stick tongue out was a big thing. And then, of course, moving toes on the left. I mean, it's a very small thing that we can all do every day. But evidently, there was a bunch of shouting and cheering when I finally moved my left toe. So that was the reality of that situation. And so then also one here, bathroom independence. I'm not going to get into too much details, but I will say that part of the hospital stay, that was the most humbling, humiliating situation. Having to have somebody come in every single night and take care of that. It was very difficult, but it was also one of those situations where people came in and they were helping me in this situation with that, and I'm not going to get any, we all know what was happening there. But the fact is in those moments, like for example, one time I was there, and I had just gotten done talking to one of my friends who interviewed Jelly Roll, the musician, and so he told me about this special on Jelly Roll on Hulu, and I watched it, and I said, well, and she came in, and they were cleaning me up. There's like 4 or 5 of them, and I said, well, Jelly Roll is a great redemption comeback story, and I love those. And she said, Josh, you're working on yours right now. You know that, don't you? You're going to be an amazing redemption story, too. This is in the middle of the night, getting cleaned up. And I'm telling you that one comment that she made gave me wind in my sail for the rest of the night. And it just made me feel like I am going to make a comeback. This is temporary. It feels really hard, and it feels really difficult, and I don't know how I'm going to get through it, but I know I am going to get through it. It's temporary, and people like that, and that's just one example. There were all kinds of medical professionals, doctors that came in. They did a good job of talking about my situation, but at no point did I ever feel like there wasn't hope. At no point did I ever feel like the mountain's too big to climb. It was like, it's a big mountain, Josh. It's really high. It's really hard. It's really steep, but you can climb it. You know what I'm saying? And that was really all anyone could ask for is, it's going to be hard. I'm not going to lie to you, but so they gave me that opportunity. And then I also have to say too, like there was a lot of I was treated exceptional. The professional care that I received was amazing. The doctors, the aides, obviously Dr. Fukuhara. I met him that day, but I never actually met him until I'd been out of the hospital for a very long time, because I don't remember any of my time with him. Also, I will just say this too, is I know that, when we're talking about our teams is, professional care, the emergency, the EMTs, they were exceptional, because, the thing is for me to be standing here right now, a whole bunch of things had to go right. A whole bunch of people had to do the right thing. A whole bunch of people had to do hard things for a long time, not just on May 9th of 2023, but they had to do hard things their whole career to prepare themselves to be equipped to be there for me and my family on that day. Also, I will say this, when it comes to, like insurance and all of those different things, I would say that the insurance companies, the insurance company that I had through work, they were exceptional too. I never remember at one time having a conversation with my wife about a procedure. Is it going to be covered, or should we do this, or should we do that? And that was where that industry, that company, they were part of the team too. They were there helping me through it, even though they weren't physically there. I'm sorry I sweat. I'm a pretty warm guy. Anyway, I think you guys will forgive me, right? Anyway, hopefully everybody's having a good time. So a lot of really good people pulling in my corner. I also had to, because I've always been, a very driven person, and I've come through a lot of different things in my life. My challenging childhood, getting kicked out of a bunch of schools, and all of those different things. So I've always had this, like, I'm going to push through things mentality. And one of the things that I remember the most when I came out of all of this, when I started remembering things, was my mom told me, all of that stuff, in the Bible, that David was getting ready to fight Goliath, and he says, well, I fought a lion, I fought a tiger, I fought a bear on my dad's farm. I'm going to fight this Goliath just the same. And my mom always said, all of that was your training for Goliath, and this is your Goliath. And we all have our own, right? We all have our own thing, that thing in our life that's standing in the middle of the field saying, you can't do it. You're not good enough. I don't care how much money you make. It's not enough. I don't care how much weight you lost. It's not enough. We all, if we're honest, we all have those tough things that we have to fight through. And a lot of people, when it comes to expectations, the medical professionals, especially the therapists, they had to really make sure that I was, in touch with reality, because in my mind, I was just going to get through this and everything was going to be fine, everything was going to be normal. And I remember them telling me very clearly, specifically, Josh, there's no shame in a wheelchair, and that you better, and that's just because we don't know if you're going to walk again, and that's fine, that's true, that's what they said. But as soon as I went to the long-term rehab facility that I was, or the inpatient rehab facility, I had my family my wife put on the board, walk out of here was one of the things on my board. And that was something that my therapist, she's just an amazing human being. Her name was Bailey, and she was like, Josh, there's nothing wrong with the wheelchair. It's pretty hard to walk. You're not there yet. And I was just like, I understand that. So, but when I went to therapy and I was doing she would want me to do 10 reps, I would do 2 more. I'm going to do 2 more because I want to walk out 2 more. I did 10 for you. I'm going to do 2 for my family. I'm going to do 2 for myself, 2 extra reps. And so that was my goal, was I want to walk out of here. That was something that I really was just driven to be wanted to do. And I'm very fortunate that I had a lot of people in my corner. And then I'm just going to share this with you real quick, because this was something that was out of my whole experience. This was one of the most rewarding experiences that I had.
Came in here 2 months ago. How are you feeling right now? I feel amazing.
I couldn't be here without all you guys supporting me through this situation.
You've shown us what hard work is, truly. So thank you.
I'm just so thankful. I'm thankful for all the people here, my family, everybody. It just makes me feel so loved. And I just hope to pay everyone back by doing my best on the way down, whatever that looks like. That's pretty much all I have to say. I'm thankful and blessed. I will say this, that was a very big moment for me, but it was the starting gun. It wasn't the finish line. Because to me, when I get out of the hospital, it was like boom, 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 I'm gonna walk out. But I didn't realize that the real battles, the real struggles, the real challenges, not that the other ones in the hospital weren't real, but the attacks that I felt, as far as as a human, the things I had to deal with, the real challenges really were just starting. I had to deal with the fact that, obviously, I mentioned earlier that my company, they created this specific position for me because of my ability to connect with educators and so forth. And there was a whole bunch of things going on in that space, in that field. So they determined, and I understand where they're coming from, they determined that position shouldn't exist anymore, because I was that position. And since I was not able to do it, they lost a whole bunch of big accounts. And so then I had to deal with that, and that was very difficult. It wasn't a personal decision, but it was very difficult for me to get through, because I felt like I had reached the mountaintop. I felt like that was my dream job. So that was just one example. We have other, financial challenges, and you go from having your dream job to living on Social Security and disability and all of those different things. And then you also have to, there's a lot of other things too, like I struggle with the irritability sometimes, like certain noises. There's a lot of different things that I struggle with. And I didn't come here to throw myself a pity party and talk about all the things I struggle with. I came here to celebrate all the things that I have been able to get back in my life. So that was the beginning of the triumph. And the thing is that's really neat about it is all of the things that I went through, all of the hell I went through, and the thing is I honestly can say that I feel like I'm sharing with you what happened to somebody else. There's nothing that I did in this situation that is exceptional. Nothing that I did in this situation is exceptional. But the people in my life are exceptional. I had people surrounding me. I had medical professionals surrounding me. I had my family, my church community, my school community. It was just unbelievable how much they did to help me. And I get the privilege. I'm still, my mom and I are still very close in family adventures. That we were up north for in East Jordan where I grew up for a 5K, and so we took some fun pictures. And then still doing a lot of stuff with it, disadvantaged youth and at-risk youth. So me and my mom volunteered. We do it a couple times a year where we spend the whole weekend there and we work with all these students. So I still get a chance to do that. And then one of the goals this summer that was pretty scary, that was a stretch goal for me was I have when all of this stuff happened, I first got out of the hospital, I had a lot of people telling me, I need a scooter. I did need a scooter because I couldn't get around. I wanted to go around and go watch my kids practice football and all these different things. So I needed a scooter, so I was going to sell my dirt bike. It's just an old beater dirt bike. But anyway, I just said, you know what? I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up on dirt bikes. Even though somebody showed up while I was in the hospital and stole 2 of our dirt bikes, I'm not going to give up on it. And I kept it, and it just sat there collecting dust. But this year I said, I want to ride that dirt bike again. My wife's like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because that's pretty dangerous. And I'm like, yeah, it is pretty dangerous. But she let me do it. She let me do it. And I had a friend come over and babysit me. My wife lets me know those things. And my wife, by the way, we talk about medical professionals. My wife is a medical professional. She's an occupational therapist. So I had a lot of bonus advice. I had a lot of bonus therapy, a lot of bonus training. And I tell you, it worked out perfectly that she had that role, and that was her job, because that really made a huge difference, in my situation, having her there. And then also, it says concert adventures. My brother and sister, first off, my sister, one of the best humans on this planet, she lives in Chicago. She has a management position, works in IT. She moved out of her house temporarily, and she moved into my hospital room. So I never spent a night alone in the hospital. Between her and my brother, I had someone there with me around the clock. In the middle of the night, when I woke up, they were the first voices I heard. So I had people around me. And so my brother and sister, the following year for my birthday, there's this band that my brother and I really liked. It's a punk band. And they were on their farewell tour. Well, they went together and they got tickets and they bought plane tickets and so forth. And so me and my brother, they flew me out to California. And it was really neat because it was the first trip I took without my wife with me to help me with everything. So it was actually kind of scary. Well, anyway, so that was a massive punk rock show. It took place at the Port of Los Angeles, so it's just this big, massive sea of people. And I had a different picture that I was going to put in here, but I was advised not to, because everybody in this room would probably agree with my wife and say that I probably shouldn't be doing what I was doing in the picture. What was I doing in the picture? I was in the mosh pit. And it was a really good picture because there was a guy who was like right in front of me, and he was just crowd surfing, and I'm standing there getting knocked all over the place, taking pictures. I was going to show that picture, but frankly, this one's a little nicer. But we were both drenched in sweat, and that was a pinch myself, is this really happening moment. And my family helped do that. My brother and sister helped do that for me. And then, of course, one of the things I like the most is I've been coaching basketball with my boys since my oldest son, Charlie, who's a sophomore at Catholic Central. Since he was in 3rd grade, I've been his basketball coach, and I coached Danny, and then I coached Benji. Well, last year I was able to start coaching again, and then this year, for the first time, I'm coaching football as well. So a lot of action in the Spears house. But anyway, one last thing here before I let everybody go. Dr. Fukuhara made a video for me, so I made a video for him. So I didn't know if he was going to be here or not, but regardless, he'll get a chance to see the recording. So we went to SeaWorld. We went to SeaWorld last year in the spring for spring break, And I went on a couple roller coasters there. And my wife's like, you really should be careful. You know, you did have a lot of stuff going on. There was a couple rides where I got off and I told my wife, I said, I just tested everything they did in my heart. Anyway, so when I got back, we were going to go to Cedar Point, and my wife's like, you really need to reach out to Dr. Fukuhara's office and ask them if it's okay for you to go on roller coasters. So I sent him a message on the portal, and I said, hey, can I go on roller coasters? And like, you know, Josh, we haven't seen you since your initial scans, and we can't really sign off on you going on a roller coaster. And I'm like, okay. I still went on a few coasters. I mean, the top thrill dragster, I mean, it only goes 450 feet in the air at 120 miles an hour. I mean, but I did. But anyway, I had a short time after that, I had an appointment with him and a full scan, and I'm almost done. So I had a full scan, and right before I was leaving, I said, Dr. Fukuhara, do you think I can go on roller coasters? He goes, yeah, go on all the roller coasters. I said, oh, okay. And so I went to Cedar Point a couple weeks later, and I did go on all the roller coasters again, because I'd went on them before. So fast forward to beginning of the summer, Dr. Fukuhara actually called me at my house, and I didn't really know what he was calling for. I had no idea about this. I was nervous, like, did they find something on my scan? And the first thing I said to him is, Dr. Fukuhara, do you remember me telling you that I wanted to go on the roller coasters? And he goes, yeah, I remember. And I said, I just got back from Cedar Point 2 days ago, and I went on all the coasters. And he just started laughing. He thought that was so funny. So I was going to go to Cedar Point again a few weeks ago, so I decided to do something a little unorthodox. Hopefully you guys are entertained by it.
Thank you, everybody, for all the help. Here we go.
Real quick, this is I don't know if you ever heard of the slingshot, but they pull you down and they shoot you up like 500 feet in the air, and so that's what this is.
Thank you, everybody, for all the help. Here we go.
Hello, I want to take a minute and dedicate this ride to Dr. Fukuhara.
Thank you to all the medical professionals at U of M Hospital who helped me with everything. Thank you to all the EMTs for all that you did for me. I appreciate you all. I hope this inspires you to keep helping people just like you do. There's a whole world in your debt. Thank you. Iron Man must have nerves of steel.